A good afternoon to you, everyone. It's good to have you here this afternoon. This is day 3 of our webinar series. It's going to be a wonderful time, I promise you. Our guest is here. Very soon you will see her face, and she's also on standby to share with us insights based on our experience, based on our exposure. And I'm very sure that we have a lot to learn and to gain from her. In the next couple of seconds, we're going to start. So we'll be starting with the profile of our guest. As usual, I will not do the reading. You do the reading yourself. What I do is to display, because I know that we're also going to get 1 or 2 insights from the profile. Once again, you are welcome to Insight, where we are committed to ensuring that you are well positioned and well prepared for the opportunity that's ahead of you. Welcome once again. Welcome. Next couple of seconds, I would start by sharing with us the profile of our guest. Thereafter, the conversation will begin. All right, everyone. Once again, you are welcome to Insight. I promise you it's going to be a wonderful time out. Our guest is here and you can see her face. So it's only her face that you'll be seeing as usual. Hi, Ayo.
Hello.
Hey, how are you today?
Good.
It's good to have
Thanks
you
for.
on Insight. Thank you for accepting to be our guest on the Insight. All right. We have currently about 16 people on Zoom. And I'm also sure that quite a number of people are on Telegram and also listening to us on via Mixler. So let's just get straight to the business of the day. So, Ayo, how did you get into the field of health in first instance?
I got into the field of maybe I stumbled into it. I always wanted to be a doctor, so I got into UI for physiology, hoping to cross. I didn't cross, and then I started. So that's like the summary. So I'll probably say accidentally into stumbled into this. But then I thought the part that says whatever your hand finds to do it well. But I'm glad I didn't study medicine now. I mean, looking back and looking at where I am, I can see that um, maybe this is probably much better because I have doctors around me. I know the things they go through, and I'm like, okay, thank God I have my time, and I'm still doing what I love to do. So that's my brief summary.
Yes. Interestingly, all our guests from day one, day two, now day three actually launched out to study medicine to become doctor. Unfortunately, none of them find themselves in the medical practice. Well, good enough. You are, and none of them ever regretted not being in that practice. None, none. That's very, very, very interesting. So it's not just about what you wanted to do in first instance, it's all about what you find yourself doing, what you find yourself doing wherever you find yourself. So you made mention of the fact that you for your BSc you study physiology, all right, and I'm aware
Yep.
that you advance to masters to study health promotion.
Yeah.
Please, what, and now you are doing PhD in health communication. So what's the reason, what's the motivation behind this? Look at the transition from physiology to health promotion, now health communication. Can you please shed more light on your transition?
Yeah, okay. So when I finished from physiology, or when I was about to finish, I was asking questions about, so what do we do with this? I remember we asked one of our teachers that, sir, what can we do with physiology? And the person said, you can work in the bank. Ah. And I'm like, anybody can work in the bank. How will I do 4 years in a particular way and then go work in the bank? And the person say, hey, you can also lecture. So like there is no specific cut out role for a physiologist, especially in Nigeria. So that got me thinking I don't want to work in the bank, and I know you can't just lecture with your first degree. And I also didn't want to proceed in the line of physiology because I felt there's not too much relevance to real life and what we are doing. Most people that go for masters in physiology then were probably hoping to also do PhD so that they can lecture. To me, although I did very well in physiology, but I felt it was really boring. They were teaching us things that I could not really apply to real life. So I thought it might be good to go into a field where I can apply things, I can hold interventions, I can change things. So, so that was why I decided to go into MPH. So I got into MPH. I looked at all the tracks. The one that really dealt with me was health promotion, health education. So I felt, okay, I think I can do this. And then I got in. I had a fantastic supervisor who was very, very supportive and very, very encouraging. And then something happened during my MPH. We had an intervention in a particular village, maybe Ido or something. I can't remember. And then we were going to disseminate the results of our findings to the community members. And we brought them to UCH. My supervisor led the study, so he was the PI. So he was trying to communicate the result to them, like, so, even saying it in Yoruba, why you pay kini, this. But at the end of the day, we did a quick survey where we asked the community members if they understood what we told them. And most of them, they understand many of the things we said. So I felt, oh, there's a gap here in communicating research findings to the lay audience. Many people in academics are very skilled in academic writing and communicating to people in the academic community, like journals, conferences, posters. They always know how to talk about p-values and all those things. But when it comes to communicating to the lay audience, it's usually very hard, and sometimes they don't understand what we are saying. So I decided to go into the field of health communication, specifically to the lay audience, which I started thinking of. I started a public health theater group, which I think at that time I didn't know anybody that was doing it. So we had a theater group where we'll go into rural communities to act stage drama on specific health problems. We talked about things like family planning. We had drama on genotype testing and all of that. And the feedback was phenomenal because it was new. People were not doing it. And then I thought, okay, along the line, I applied to be a media consultant to John Hopkins um, Public Health in Nigeria initiative, where they needed someone to manage their radio drama. So, and they were going to select just one person for, to manage that. Then had already started my theater group, and also I've been writing stories and scripts on public health, and I've also gotten some organizations who sponsored some of these stories that I've written into a movie. So I think then we've already created like two or three short films on different issues, some on sickle cell, some on road traffic accidents, some on things like that. That was just the niche where I felt comfortable. After my MPH, yeah, and of course I got the John Hopkins position where I was made a media consultant. But after my MPH, it was as if the whole MPH field was saturated. It's either you are doing MIE, and especially if you study in my field, which is health promotion. It's either you are doing MIE or you are doing maybe um, program planning or things like that. The field seemed to be saturated. But then, with the help of God, I was able to create a niche. I've always said, I want to merge media and public health. I want to merge communication and public health. I want to merge media and public health. And I couldn't find that in the Nigeria curriculum. I didn't find any school that was doing something like health media or things like that. So I started looking abroad, started looking at the US, and then I started seeing, schools in the US doing things like that. So that's my transition story.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. You talked about the fact that while you were in school, you had a supervisor, supportive supervisor, which really play a key role in your exposure to what's really going on the field. Then you also made mention of the fact that it is important for you to get a specific cut out role for yourself.
Yeah.
Then
Sorry
I
to
also
cut you.
see that from what you have said that the earlier you find your niche, the better for your career advancement, because you knew early enough the gap and you were able to explore what the gap is, and then you built on that gap. And I also noticed that you also took initiative. All right, you took initiative and you start something. So friends on the platform, you can hear our guest all these things. She took initiative, she had a supportive supervisor, then she was able to identify her niche and she leveraged on that. And one thing that I also noticed from what you have said is that you were able to articulate some little things that you were doing, even though they may seem little, but they were big enough to perhaps give you leverage while you were applying for that job openings at with job Hopkins. So Ayo, you in your last response, you're talking about are you able to explore and then moving abroad. So what exactly was the motivation behind your advancement abroad? What exactly? You talk about the fact that, well, less is known about your field in Nigeria. Are there other reasons why you also further your education abroad?
Yeah, sure. Another top one is family. So um, my husband was planning to move, so I knew I had to move with him. But something else that my supervisor said, I was going to add that I remember when I went to his office, probably some of you will know him, Professor Oladepo. He would tell him that I was doing, that I did a short film. That was when I did a short film on road traffic accident. Then I had graduated. I think I had graduated. I just went to show him, and then he said something very remarkable. Um, he watched it, like he sat down there, he watched it, and he was like, "Wow!" He just said, "Ayo, let me tell you what I see." And I don't know if he's a Christian or whatever, but he just said, "Let me tell you what I see. I see grants. I see grants. I see WHO. I see grants. I see WHO. I see this thing you are doing. I see you creating." And that was like the first time I felt like, wow, so what I'm doing is really big. And he just kept saying it. And he was like, if you want to do your PhD here, I'm happy to support you. And then he went and he started showing everybody the film. And then I would just see people on the road and they'll say, "Oh, Prof is talking about you. We saw your film. Prof is talking about." So that gave me confidence to say, okay, maybe this thing can even go international. Maybe this thing is really big. So the other thing was, I used to think schooling abroad is a hard thing, and also expensive. Like that's always been my what I knew about it. Like it's very US. How will you pay? Then how will you do all your schooling in Nigeria and then move to the US? Like that's going to be very, very hard. Then, someone said, God rules the world through conversation. Many times when we are praying for something, it's always good for us to just pay attention to the things we hear, to the conversations going around us. Like someone could hear, oh, this, and you just take that information very, very seriously. So someone just told me that, do you know that um, yeah, it was even my husband that said it. He said, I was speaking with someone, do you know that most PhD abroad get funded? I'm like, really? Really? Like, because what I know is people have to look for scholarship, look for funding. I've never heard that in my life that most PhD abroad get funded in the US, especially get funded. So I started my own research. I'm like, if it's funded, so why not just do my PhD in the US? So that was like the main motivation. Number one, the fact that I had information. I've worked with many people. I've had 100% success rate in helping people get admission to the US. 100%. In fact, in many of the cases, they've also gotten funding. And I've worked with people through this path, especially people that are very serious and very ready. And I've worked with people through this path over and over again. And one major thing I've noticed is information is very key. Many people don't know. I mean, many people are doing big things that all they just have to do is frame it the right way and fundings will be chasing after them. Some other people um, don't know that it's even possible or there is even an opportunity. There was a time that one of our friends came to the US for a conference, and I think he only stayed for like 1 week or so. Then he came to our house, and he's a medical doctor. And then he was gisting, and he told us, he said, "Look, how can I get my wife and my family back to this country? Things are really working here. Things are really working here." And he was just doing something big in a small town, and that was how they invited him. But he was doing something unique. He was consistent with it, and people here see there's some things they are looking out for, that if you have it, they will always want you. For example, one major thing about the US is very big, it's very diverse. And this is something many people don't know. And I've heard people ask that, but I only work with women in Bodija. How is that one now? Like my research, I work with drivers in Shomolu. How will the US now be interested in my work? This is one of the areas where I feel information is very needed. So the US is very big. They are very big. That's why they call them United States. They are not really one. It's just bringing states together. It's also very diverse, racially, socioeconomically, everything. Very diverse, very big. Now, the dominant thinking is that the 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 healthcare, every country is always looking for how to spend little on healthcare and get the best results, which is where public health comes in. Every country is looking for how can we spend little and get big results. Now, public health teaches you that you can prevent, that prevention will help you to minimize costs, and then you get big results, you get good health outcome. Now, this is where your Shomolu project or your Bodija project comes in. Everything that people do, every population in Nigeria have a similar representative in the US. Now, when you're working with, and it's always important that you're able to identify the key characteristics of the people you are working with in Nigeria. Now, when you're working with women, market women in Bodija, there is a group of people in the US who share commonalities with market women in Bodija. The common thing about market women in Bodija is probably they have low education, maybe they are older, and then they have low socioeconomic status, and then maybe they live in rural communities. You have the same group of people here in the US. People who have low education, low socioeconomic status, mostly women, and live in rural communities. If you can identify specific, what we call in evaluation, we call it active ingredients. If you can identify the active ingredient that make maybe your intervention to be effective to this group of people, you are the one calling them Bodija women. Over here, they will probably call them Hispanic women in the suburb. They might call them that here. So the name does not matter. Your own location is Bodija. Yeah, probably the other. But the problem, the challenge you are trying to solve in public health is what's the demographic of the people you've worked with and you've seen results? How can you replicate that result you found among those group of people, among a similar group of people here? When I started interviewing for my PhD, one of the feedback I kept getting was people would tell me, "Oh, we also have a Nigerian community here in the US." My advisor always say that, would you like to help us see how we can reach out to the Nigerian community here in the US, with health messages? We have a large community, a large Nigerian community here in the US. Can you also, the things you've done that have worked in Nigeria, do you think you can replicate them to the Nigerian community here in the US? I've also heard people say that you've reached out, you've saved costs. through this your state dramas, do you think you can replicate state dramas here in the US and also help us to save costs? So everything you're doing in Nigeria is very relevant to, I can speak for the US because that's where I am, is very relevant to the US. Every population you work with and you record success. And I always advise people who do things in Nigeria, maybe you're just running an NGO or you are just doing your small event, especially related to public health, prioritize data. People here are moved by data. um, Collect data. When we used to do our stage drama, before the drama, we'll do a pre-test. We just share this survey, ask people, what do you know about genotype? What's the difference between genotype and blood group? What's this? Have you done your genotype? Blah, blah, blah. We text, knowledge, attitude, behavior towards testing. Then we do our stage drama, and then we share a post-test. Something very simple, the same stuff. And then we go and analyze it. And we're able to see to prove anywhere we go that our stage drama is causing an increase in knowledge by so percent. People here don't want to read stories. They just want to, they especially when it comes to convincing them that your stuff is working, they want you to show data, show statistics. How did they move? What changed? Even if they don't care, maybe it's Shomolu women or just this thing you're doing. Is it producing result? If it is, then we want we want you to come on board. We want you in our camp. We want you to replicate it. And they are very ready to, there is a huge cultural humility here. They are very ready to learn from you.
Thank you so much. You have given us loads of information this afternoon. I don't know where to start, but I will just start anyway, somewhere. You talked about the fact that schooling abroad is not as hard as we think. And then I can see the way you are just sharing that insight seamlessly, with ease. And many people feel that, studying abroad is extremely difficult. It's extremely impossible. But you just share to us that it's not that as difficult as we think. I know, of course, with determination, with proper planning, you can do it with ease. At the same time, you also talked about the fact that it is important for us to pay attention to things that goes on around us. Things that goes on around us. We need to pay attention to that because we may get information. You make reference to a friend of yours that came to US, came visiting, and then he was doing so, wonderfully well here. I never thought it could be that relevant. It could be a pathway for him to get abroad. Then you also make reference to the fact that many of us are doing big things, but we are not articulating them well enough. And you also talk about your own personal story, how you able to articulate what you are doing and then share what you are doing. But something phenomenal that you made mention is to tell people around you about what you are doing, especially your supervisor. Quite a number of people on this platform now are still students, all right? And they're doing well. Some are doing personal projects, some are doing volunteering work, but they're just keeping mum, all right? They felt that maybe somebody will stay there or whatsoever, but I feel that can be, it will be important for them to share what they are doing because that supervisor or that lecturer may have additional information, can even give them link, can even inspire them or encourage them to pursue their goal further. Perhaps that can be something that they may need to leverage on in their career advancement. That's very, very important. Thank you so much. And you talked about the fact that the people in the US, they appreciate data. They appreciate data. And so whatsoever project that we are doing, everyone, listen to this. It is important that you take note of your information, keep your data, keep them well. And I want to also advise that you fill our pre-webinar evaluation and then post-webinar evaluation form that we're going to share with you. So, Ayokunle, you are talking about your motivation, okay? But I want you to kindly tell us how important is knowledge acquisition abroad in your career advancement? The knowledge acquisition abroad, how important has it been to you as a person?
Oh, I'll say immeasurable. The the knowledge you get from schooling abroad, especially in the US, I think personally I prefer schooling in the US to the UK. Um, I have colleagues here who schooled in the UK. I have some who schooled in other parts of Europe, and the difference I think is that the US schooling system is more practice based, less of theory. Is more of things you can do, things you can use, things you can. For example, this COVID-19. Um, Many of our students are very active. Many of our students are at the forefront of doing something related to this COVID-19. It's not just like, we've only learned theory, now we don't know how to respond. So it's very practice-based. You are taught. When I first came in my first year, when we want to write exams or tests, I don't used to read my notes. Like I don't need to go back to read my class notes because it's like the way you are taught, you can't forget. So it's very, they give you real life examples, the things you go through. It's hard for you to just forget because they teach you in a way that you can apply it immediately. It's like when you're consuming glucose, it just gets absorbed, quickly compared to when you eat a bar, and then the thing stays, and then it's not just regurgitational learning. They're not asking you questions like define this. What are the three characteristics? It's very practice based. So I think it's the knowledge is very priceless.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Knowledge acquisition abroad is immeasurable. Can you hear that, guys? It's immeasurable. Well, we are doing well in Nigeria yet, but it cannot be compared to what is going on in this advanced country. You all agree with me that these countries are far advanced more than us. And at the same time, knowledge acquisition over there is practical and applicable. Practical and applicable. It's not about la crème, la pour that some of us are used to. It's something that you don't even need to read your note again before you know all that you have been taught. Thank you so much, Ayokunle, for this insight. Earlier on, you were trying to talk about how you go to the US in terms of getting the school that you choose and the application process. Could you please shed more light on how you came about your choice of graduate school that you attended?
Yeah. Like I said again, getting to the US is very easy. Is especially for PhD. Although there are things that you need to know, knowledge is very powerful. If you don't know those things, you might struggle with it. But once you're able to get those things, then it's super easy. So there are different leagues of school. There are so my application process, I did everything myself. I didn't use any agent, and I always encourage people to do these things yourself. In fact, there are schools here in the US that they will tell you that if you use an agent, they will disqualify you because at the level of PhD application, you should have enough mental capacity to be able to um, read this. The application process itself is like a screening. So they strongly believe that you should be able to do these things yourself. And it's one of the filters that personally I always use to know when people come to me that they want to school in the US. There are some questions I will ask them once they start saying things like maybe help me to look for the school you think I should go. I'm like, are you sure you want to apply for PhD or you apply for masters? Because at PhD level, people who will really do well, the whole application process is like a predictive test, sort of, that you can use to even predict how well these particular students will be. So for me, I didn't feel like I should go to anybody or any agency, any traveling agent to help me. I thought I could read the instructions myself, go to the internet, look for where to do it, and then get it done. So that was basically what I did. I started searching online. The key thing for me was funding. That was the major thing for me. I wanted to school in a place where funding will be guaranteed. So I went to SOFAS. SOFAS is if you're in public health, it's like a portal where schools of public health come together and you can submit a single application and just select the schools and they will just forward it to those schools. So I went on SOFAs and SOFAs have filters. So you can filter the kind of school you want. So I chose the key things I wanted. I want a school where there is health communication. I want a school where funding is guaranteed for PhD students. I want a school. I just put the filters that I wanted, and then it streamlined it and brought a list of schools to me. Now, I think the next thing to do when you see those list of schools, if you're applying, I encourage people to apply wide. So there are different levels of schools. There are Ivy League schools. You can just go online and Google PhD school rankings, public health school rankings, and you'll see like the top 100, or you can even see up to 500. So I always encourage people when you have that ranking, go on so fast, put the keywords, filter by the things you want, and then choose like if you have, depending on the money you have, because each of these applications cost a lot. So stratify all these schools. You will have to go back to Google and check the names of the schools and see if are they Ivy League. Look for acceptance rate. Check for acceptance rate. So you want to spread your application. Try to apply to Ivy League schools, maybe like 2 that have funding. If funding is very key for you, just take note of those schools, write them down, then apply to like middle league, and if there's anything like that, middle league schools, and then apply to a very, very low school um, with high acceptance rates. So if you can just do two that way, don't just apply to top schools all through. The good thing about the US, which I later learned when I got here and I've also used, is that you can cross from schools. Now the school I came into is not a very, very top league school. It's a very good school. In fact, the program was very new. They have doctoral program in public health. I came into University of Nevada, Reno. Reno is a very small city, probably one of the smallest city in the US, but it's very comfortable. It's like a community. It's like a little bit rural, kind of. So they have high acceptance rate. They have high funding. They really want people to come. They really want people to stay. Me say is not Ivy League does not mean it's like a Jaga Jaga school. Is compared to almost any Nigerian school, it's probably top notch. You have access. In fact, the movie Avatar, the director of the movie, I think it's James Cameron, came to our school library, that's Reno, and said the school has all the tools that he used in producing Avatar.
Wow.
So it's not like a Jaga Jaga school. I think they've not produced, because we're the second set, this program was new, so they've not produced enough to even be on the rank, because you can only rank a school that has produced things. So the school is quite good. So the good thing is spread your application. So I came into that school, the acceptance rate was very high, and then I crossed after my first year. So you can always do that. You can come into a school that is not so high, and then you can cross to John Hopkins or even any Ivy League school. The thing about crossing is most big schools will like to take you if you're crossing, because they assure you in the US they are not dealing with visa, they are not dealing with whether you will be rejected for visa, because schools are always careful of getting international students, because sometimes you extend the application to them, you save the spots, you deny some other people, and then they tell you that they were not granted visa. So some schools are very, very careful with getting such. But when you're already here, you can always cross to, and for me, I continued, not like I started afresh. So I did first year at UNR, and then I moved to University of Illinois in Chicago, where I am now. So I just continued. So you can always spread your application. Don't worry, even if the school you eventually get is not like the top league. Um, from there, you are able to, once you are in, you can always cross if you want to. So depending on you too, you can always stay. A place like Reno, they have very good. For example, when I was there, they told us after our second year, when we pass our prelim exam, they are going to employ us to become lecturers to teach the undergraduates, because the school is, like I said, they don't have too many people. They don't have so many teachers teaching undergraduates. And so they feel it's good for them to just take their PhD students and convert them into lecturers to teach. And then they said they were going to be paying like $4,000 a month. So if you feel comfortable with that, you might choose to stay. So it's not like it's a bad school. And that's the good thing about schools with high acceptance rate in remote areas. They always want to retain you. They always want to do things to make you stay. They always want to give you offers and opportunities. So because they need people. So their retention is usually very high. So even if the school you get into is not super, just make sure the key things you're looking for funding. Will they fund you? Once they will fund you, you can always take a shot. So I decided to spread my application that way. The other thing I did was um, I now started sending emails to, I'll read through their website and everything, and then I'll send emails to, if I have questions, I'll send emails to the academic coordinators. Will you allow this? And I ask straight off, will funding be guaranteed for my 4 years? Will this? So I ask all those questions, things that I'm not clear of. I usually ask about funding. I also usually always ask about my research interest. Is there a perfect fit? But because these are the main reasons why they reject people. So before I even apply, I have this template of questions that I do ask. Is there a perfect fit for me? Do you think there is somebody who can supervise me? Because this is like the number one reason why they reject students. And then some of them will say, okay, I think these three people might be a good fit. You might want to look them up. Okay, so I'll email those specific people and I'll tell them I'm interested. Do you think you'll be able to work with me? Or maybe do you have your hands full? Because some of them might already have students and they know they can't take anybody. So in writing that letter, and I should be able to share templates with you of some of the emails that I sent. That
Okay.
letter is very strategic. It's always short, but I put some key things. I put my GRE score. I put I put some of the key works that I've done. It's always very short, and then I say things like, I've done this, I've done this. I look at your work, I see we are very much related. Would you like to work with me? This. So at a glance, because Oyinbo people don't really like reading too many long things. So at a glance, they can just see, okay, this. And I always put a link to that will direct them to my works, or if they wish to read further, or ask if I can. And also, you can always ask if you can schedule a meeting with them. That will go a very long way. If you see someone who you can work with, you can ask them who you like to schedule a meeting with them, or even with the academic coordinator or the program director. Once you schedule that meeting with them, make sure you're able to market yourself. Now, this is something very important in speaking with them, especially when you're applying. You must speak their language. And I'm not just talking about English. Now, there are some things you are doing that in the language of public health, what you are doing is community-based participatory research. But in your own view, you might just say that I go to communities to talk to women, and then I use research. They won't get it. When they are listening to us, first of all, some of them don't hear our English very well. Second of all, they are super busy that the only thing they want to pick from conversation is keywords that jump out at them. So what I usually do, and I learned this late, but ever since then, all the applications I've applied to have always selected me. But what I usually do is I go to their website, I read their website. And when I'm reading their website, I mean the school, that School of Public Health website or the faculty website, when I'm reading it, I'm highlighting some things that I call keywords.
Mm.
These keywords are things that I must use word for word in either my conversation with them or in my personal statement.
Mm.
So I go to, maybe there's a professor probably who works on health communication or whatever. I read his profile. Some of them I read their CV. I choose these keywords. The good thing is they would have forgotten what they wrote word for word,
Mm.
but the thing still jumps out at them when anybody says it. So for some people, it's health equity.
Mm.
For some people, community-based participatory research. For some people, it's health dissemination. For some people, it's research methodology. They are very big on research. Some people, it's just policy. They are so big on policy. Anything you say, if you don't put policy, they don't feel like you are connected.
Mm.
So I don't send the same email to different lecturers. I use their keywords. In fact, some of them I'll refer to their paper that they publish because I'll go and read their paper and then I'll be able to draw inference on how I've also seen something similar in Nigeria. That way, you are pulling their attention to you. Every researcher likes that you read their paper, like they like it. If you just, it's one of the ways of building network. Hey, I read your paper. I thought what you said about this is really true. I feel this. That's like a good way to start conversation.
Mm.
They will feel like you are deeper, like you are very serious. You have gone the extra mile, like you are very ready. So when you read their paper and then when you read their paper, go and read the section where they talked about things like future research should work on, especially the discussion part where
Mm.
they talk about we recommend this or future research should work on. We hope that further people will build on. Just go to that section and probably think through, and then you can make that a talking point on their recommendation about this. Then you can ask them questions like, I think that recommendation you gave about teenage pregnancy and how future research should start looking at the use of the should move from using single question to assess it to using multiple questions. But do you also think that that way it's like you are just connecting with them? They'll feel like, this is the kind of person I want in my team, who
Mm.
is already looking at my research, criticizing it constructively. As in, it's not that you just say, I don't think it will work. I don't think it will. You, it's more like a constructive criticism, and you ask thought-provoking questions. Like,
Mm.
possibly you can even go on their Twitter page, look at the kind of conversations they are having around that particular time you are applying. These are things that you may need to do behind the scene,
Mm.
and just look at their most recent work. Many of them forget past works because they work in groups. Many of them have research teams. So even if you see them as an author on that paper, it might not be that they really wrote. You don't know the section they wrote, So you may just be quoting the section that someone else wrote, except if they are the first author. If they are the first author, you can leverage that. But you can look for very recent ones, and then you can go on Twitter, look at the conversations that they are having. Maybe they even love dogs. You can chip that in that, oh, you like dogs. And you
Mm.
can say something about dogs that they said in their on their Twitter or things like that. And say, oh, I think sometimes they're just like the best pet. They'll be like, really? I feel so too. You just okay.
Yeah.
So um, that's something key. Speak their language, word for word, lift it. Not like you lift a sentence or so, it's just keywords, maybe two words or one word that you see that they keep using in their CV, they used it on their profile, they also used it on their LinkedIn. And you're like, this person is, and you also look at their works, it's like this is what they keep doing. For some people, it's vaccination, childhood vaccination. That's what they're very big on. Though they might do it in different areas. For some people, it's the elderly. That's their interest. They can do everything they do is about the elderly. Now that brings me to another very, very important point.
Hmm.
When you are applying to schools, don't be too narrow, but at the same time, you must be narrow. And that's like one of the most confusing things. Like, don't be too narrow, but you must be narrow. Sometimes people just throw this white and I hope to solve inequality. That's good for master's level if you're applying for a master's. But if you're applying for PhD, they expect that you've already identified a niche. Now, in identifying this niche, you don't have to be too narrow. And there are some ways that some key things that can guide you in making sure that you are not too broad or too narrow. First of all, when choosing your interest, there are many ways you can choose your interest. There are people who choose their interest and as a health condition. So let me say my interest is cancer, maybe breast cancer. That's my research area. Now, the fact that I choose breast cancer, that's specific, which is good. Now I must not. I now have to make it broad, so I can do breast cancer, communicating breast cancer. I can do breast cancer among the elderly. I can do breast cancer among breast cancer and COVID-19. I can do COVID-19 and coping with breast cancer. I can do breast cancer prevention, breast cancer survivorship, breast cancer. So it's still breast cancer, but then I'm going into different areas in breast cancer. So that way I can attract anybody. So if I meet somebody who works with the elderly, I can say, oh, I'm doing breast cancer among the elderly. If I see someone who is saying I'm a health communication major, I can say, oh, I want to look at how to communicate breast cancer. If I see somebody who says I'm an interventionist, I might say, oh, let's do an intervention on breast cancer. So that way, I'm still on my breast cancer, but I can work with anybody.
Hmm.
So that makes you to be, so when you are a breast cancer person and you want to, and you find a school where all the people there, they are not doing anything on breast cancer, they are just doing um, other things, there's a way you can connect your breast cancer to what they are doing, that you will now sell it to them. You now make yourself marketable to them. The
Hmm.
other way you can choose an interest. So I've said you can choose an interest by choosing a health condition. For me, I don't like that. So um, I get bored very easily. So I feel like if I choose, I can't just do breast cancer, I might just get bored. So, but the other way you can choose, which is another way that people choose, is they choose population.
Hmm.
So my research interest is the elderly. So they just tell you my research interest is the elderly. So they do breast cancer among the elderly, they do HIV among the elderly, they do diabetes among the elderly, they do health communication among the elderly, they do creating policies for the elderly, storytelling for the elderly, anything falls among the elderly. All their things just center around the elderly and they can work with anybody. Anybody.
Hmm.
For me, I didn't choose that because I feel, I don't know, I feel it's a little bit restrictive. But it's also helpful. I mean, I know people who do that, that you will always, um, why I didn't choose that is because there are some projects that you won't be able to participate in. For example, that means if I'm doing something for adolescent, I don't need you. If I'm doing tobacco smoking if I'm creating a research team, I just might not need you. So
Hmm.
that's why I didn't choose my interest based on that route. The third one, which is the one that I choose, is by choosing your interest based on a phenomenon or a topic area. Choosing your interest based on a topic area. So for me, I chose health communication. If I see someone in the elderly, they will still need communication. They will
Hmm.
still need to build health communication into whatever project they are doing. If if there's someone doing cancer, they'll still need health communication. I have a professor who is in health communication. She's in so many research teams because every team wants to know how to disseminate their results. Because in fact, most founders will make it mandatory that you need to disseminate your results to the people you work with. So people need a health communication expert in their team. So I just chose that topic area, and it can flow with the adolescent, it can flow with cancer, communication, health literacy, it can flow with different types of population. So that's how I choose mine. And while applying, I was able to weave that into any form of application that I'm doing. No matter what that person is doing, I can always weave health communication and dissemination into that particular area. So the unique spots that I picked in health communication, and over time, I've even gotten more and more, it has gotten slimmer, that chance, that niche.
Mm.
Right now, what I'm doing is, so I started with health communication to the lay audience. After that, I moved to metaphor, using metaphor, proverbs,
Mm.
idioms to communicate to the lay audience, because these are things that the lay audience can probably understand. But right now, my current project is even using scriptural based parables to communicate health message to religious people who are lay audience. So we realize that um, and my main focus for now is HPV, human papilloma virus, in HPV vaccination. So we realized that here in the US, the states where people report to be very religious, they have low they have low uptake of HPV vaccine for their children, because HPV is sexually transmitted. So many people feel like, if I'm taking it for my child, that means I'm encouraging the child. So religious states, religious people have very low uptake of HPV vaccine, which you can also find in Nigeria. I mean, it's something that you most likely find in Nigeria.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing is very unique. I mean, there is I'm taking scripture stories. I'm looking at the story of Noah and the ark, and I'm using that to create a message to say that the flood is the virus, the ark is the vaccine. When you bring your child, in the same like in the days of Noah, when people said, "Oh, the flood cannot come to me," and then Noah was telling them, "Come into the ark," and they said no, and then they are able to, the people who entered were the ones that were saved, things like that.
Yeah.
So I'm drawing an allegory between religious parables and stories, and
Wow.
then I'm pulling that with HPV vaccine. So it's still health communication,
Mm.
and I'm getting lots of attraction for it. They're like, because it's hard for you to see someone who is in religious field,
Mm.
because many of them, and we also know about health communication. It's
Yeah.
hard for you that will merge that. Many people are religious people, but they don't know how to now. They go into theology and all. They don't know how to use that to connect with public health. Many people are public health people. In fact, many of them don't even know. They are not always religious. They don't even know Bible stories or things like that. So, and we are piloting that, and even my pilot test shows that that message, and I'm comparing it to the CDC's HPV vaccine message. So
Mm.
I'm taking the message that CDC developed for HPV, and I'm doing a randomized control trial. I'm giving CDC message to some people to now test if they would like to vaccinate, and I'm giving my own message to some people. And so far, my message has proven to be more effective than the CDC message
All right.
from the pilot testing. So this is, you are in one area, you go down, but you also stay broad. And that does not, I'm also doing health communication in antimicrobial stewardship, health communication in COVID-19. So I'm still health communication, but then I'm getting narrow. So that's very important.
Yes. Wow. This is so huge. Thank you so much. You've said so many things that, as a matter of fact, to even have a recap on this, we just have to listen to all this again. Thank you so much. It's so funny that on one question, we spent close to 30 minutes on a question because you have so much broken this response down. And I'm very sure that all the participants are gaining from this. So, Ayokunle, you made mention of several things, several things. And most importantly, from all that you have said, has to do with the importance of how to get yourself abroad in terms of the secret. I call it how to get the attention of your intending supervisor or intending school, how to better position yourself. And you made mention of several things. You talk about how to specifically look after the person, get to the school, mail the school, get the right information, ask thought provoking questions, talk, review their publication. Then you go to their Twitter page, LinkedIn account, and get to know all that they are doing, and make reference to recommendation from their past researches or current researches, so that you can perhaps build on what they have done. In doing that, you'll be able to get their attention. This is very, 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 very interesting. And then lastly, you talk about how to identify a good research interest. You talk about using health condition, then using a population base, as well as using a topic area, a phenomenon. And that indeed very, very relevant to us. So, Ayokunle, you're doing your PhD, okay? And I want to ask you, there's difference between being a PhD candidate and being a PhD student. Could you explain to us the process abroad?
So thank you very much. So PhD student is, once you come in, once you're admitted, you're already a PhD student. PhD candidate is when you pass your preliminary exam, then you become a PhD candidate. For me, I'm a PhD candidate, and different schools have different ways of translating people from students to candidates. For some schools, you have to write your proposal. That's your exam. That's your prelim exam. You have to write the proposal of your dissertation. So once you write it and it's approved, then you become a PhD candidate. For some other schools, you have to do written exam. I think my former school, they did written exam. And then after that, they'll do oral exam. And the exam is usually very, very tedious, kind of. But there are also ways around that. I passed with a distinction for my prelim exam. There are ways of going about that I'll be happy to share when you get to that level, maybe.
Okay.
But for my own school, it's we had 1 week of writing exam. We wrote it from home. You can write it from anywhere. Each day we had 9 hours for each question, for each day. So we had 9 hours, and we wrote it on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And then about a week after that, we had oral interview, where they'll give you the opportunity to correct anything you feel, any mistake you think you must have made. But here, they support you all the way. Like for our exam, they told us what to read. They told us what to prioritize when reading, what to not prioritize. You are free to, even during the exam, you can send email to ask, to clarify any question if you are not sure. That's my school here. Then your advisor can look, when you submit, your advisor can look at your response and prepare you for the oral. So there are many support systems. In fact, they sent snack. They sent a box of snacks to my house. I just saw it and they're like, so you know you may not eat well, so you can eat. They can send you food and all those things, just to encourage you. The idea is not to make you fail, and they will tell you the idea is not to make you fail. They want you to pass, and they want you to ask any. In fact, they gave us likely questions to try and see, and they will share the answers with you. They will give you feedback, because they want you. They will still answer it this way in the real exam, but that's not the exact question they will ask you. But they just want you to pass. So it's nothing to worry about, actually.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Ayokunle, for this insight. You guys can hear that. I love the last caption, the essence of examination. is not to make you fail, rather to make you pass. The essence of examination is not to make you fail, but to make you pass. So you don't be scared of writing exams, okay? Thank you so much, Ayokunle, for sharing this insight with us. I mean, we've gained so much, so much today so far, and I know that we still have a lot to get from you. So could you please just tell us, is it very difficult or very easy to get this application process together?
So it depends on you. If you just have to be focused. That's what I've seen. Many people want to apply to this. They're also looking for a job. They're also, so at the point they get distracted. Number one, it costs a lot of money. I think I spent close to 500,000 applying to 6 schools. So it costs a lot of money to get it done. I mean, writing the GRE, writing the TOEFL, submitting applications, paying application fees, and then I think Naira was really, really bad. So it really costs a lot of money. But is if you decide that this is what you want to do, you can always get it done.
All
It's
right.
easy with the information.
All right. You hear that? You just need to be focused. When you are focused, the application process will be easy. All right. So just decide on what you want to do and go for it. Be determined and be focused. Thank you so much, Ayokunle. Thank you so much once again for this time out. So if I may ask you, Ayokunle, to many people, quite a number of people on this platform now are most likely in the line of nutrition or health. Some are not. Okay, I know someone who is in physiology. Okay, like just like you. And then, so question I want to address to you now: how flexible is career advancement abroad? Quite a number of people have nutrition as their background or physiology or whatever field as their background, and they want to move, they want to switch. How flexible can this be possible abroad?
Yeah, so the beautiful thing about public health is that I'm assuming you're talking about they are still in the field of public health
Yes,
or they want
please.
to switch to computer science or what?
No, yeah, just public health, please.
Still public health. Public health is very, very big on interdisciplinary collaboration. Like I said, about how they are able to, one of the reasons they appreciate me is that I'm mixing the field of religion with public health. So, but you have to do that mixing for them. You have to show them how where you're coming from can merge with what is happening in public health. What I've realized here is that um, for the 2 schools I've attended, it doesn't matter if you're coming from nutrition or whatever, especially at the PhD level. Your first degree does not really, really matter. Your second degree matters more. So I'm assuming, are people here in masters in nutrition or BSc nutrition?
Quite a number are masters, but we have few BSc, but quite a number are masters.
Okay. So for those with masters in nutrition who wish to come into public health, there are some schools that will allow you to come into, like my previous school, you can come into PhD in public health, but then you will now take MPH courses while you are in. Some schools allow you to do that. You take the foundational courses. You'll be admitted for PhD, but then you take the foundational 2 or 3 MPH courses that you just take. But the most important thing is that you are able, you yourself need to sit down and think of, you have to connect the dots for them. Once they find, because in public health, we do nutrition research. In fact, you have a better advantage if you still want to use that nutrition in your public health. There are so many interesting things going on in the field of nutrition. Um, at the time, I was learning about the use of agent-based modeling. It's a type of statistical analysis in nutrition. And what that does is that you create, before policymakers make policies here, maybe they want to say, let's increase the price of vegetables or let's reduce the price of vegetables. They want to try it first to see if it will be worth it. So agent-based modeling helps you to simulate what a society will look like if the price of vegetable is reduced, if food becomes scarce. It's a kind of analysis where, and that's the other thing I forgot to mention in while I was talking about choosing areas of interest. Some people just choose statistical analysis. So if you're in the field of biostats, you see people who are just modeling experts. So they do that. So this is like an area in nutrition that public health is interested in. We want to create policies on food. We want obesity. We're talking about obesity. We're talking about, these are areas that we look out for. If you look at the top goals for public health here, reducing obesity is a big problem, especially in the US. So if you are in nutrition, you are at a very big advantage, but you are the one that have to find where the two will merge. You must be able to, and it's very simple. A common area is health disparity. Because the whole goal of public health in this life, I believe, let me say in this America, is to reduce the gap of health disparity, is to reduce it or even close it. For example, if you look at maternal mortality overall, is to have this. One of my friends, I think she's here, okay, she did something on disaggregated data. If you look at an aggregated data, you can just see that maternal mortality in the US is maybe 5.1. But if you break down the data and you look at it among African Americans, you will see that it's probably it's 5.1 if you look at it overview. But if you look at it among African Americans, you can now see that it's 40% or it's 30%. So that's what we call disaggregating data. That means there is a disparity. That means that African Americans are bearing a higher burden of it. The same way with this COVID-19 too. The same way with obesity. Anytime you want to cross into public health, you can always leverage health disparity. Just hold on to health disparity. Once you can prove that what you are doing in nutrition, a particular population have a higher burden of that thing, then they will just let you in. Because, like I said, public health is looking for how can we reduce the cost and still make our health very good and still optimize health. So look at the specific population that is more affected by the aspect of nutrition that you're looking at, and probably look at how that thing that is affecting them is now connected to a broad public health thing. Maybe it's connected to cancer, maybe it's connected to, you can connect it to health expenditure, how much is spent on that particular area, how much of the budget is spent on that area. Those are things that you can use to justify your case. Is it affecting these people more? Once you can prove that there is disparity, and there is always disparity, health equity is what we're always fighting for in public health. We want it to be that when we look at data, data can tell us something, but when we zero in and we pick a particular group, there are some things that are more dominant among women. There are some that are more dominant among a particular race. So there's this disproportionate bearing burden of health problem. So once you can prove, you'll get a foot in public health. We are very big on closing disparities. So that could be a window for you to just always get in. Look for the population that is mostly affected, justify why you should focus on that population, connect. If that thing is not addressed, what's likely to happen? Will it lead to more death? Will it lead to increase in disability? Will it lead to more mental breakdown? Just connect it and you will always be allowed to come in.
All right. Thank you very much, Ayokunle, for this. Guys, please, if you have questions, please raise your hand so that we'll be able to allow you to ask your question from address your questions to our guests. Ayokunle, thank you once again. Please, it is important for us to know or to have insight from you on your scholarship or funding experience. Would you please share that with us?
Okay, so like I said, I was really looking out for schools that will have funding. I don't want to just come and then be stranded. So I was always asking straight away, will there be funding? Even before I apply, I ask the academic coordinator. If they say no, I don't apply. If they say yes, I apply. Some will tell you there will be partial funding. So you need to ask for the type of funding. Sometimes I even email students that are already in that school and just to know, is the funding enough? Like, does it cater for what you need? And things like that. What's the standard of living in that city generally? Will this money be enough? And things like that. So for me, I was always asking. Any school that says no, I remove them. Some will tell you we can't say now. For those kind of people, it's now your choice to see if you should. But there are some schools that I know that they have big names, but they don't really promise funding. One of them is John Hopkins. John Hopkins, I mean, um, you just need to know why you choose a particular school. I have a friend who had a very nasty experience. She was sent back to Nigeria because she couldn't pay. I found that to be very ridiculous. I mean, like my school here, I can almost say they will never do that to you. Even if something happens and you lose your funding, they will never do that to you. Like my school here, my current school, UIC, they believe that it is their responsibility to get you funding because they know you are a full-time student. So different schools prioritize different things. That's the other thing to
Mm.
note. There are some schools that prioritize students' welfare, which is something you need to look out for. Like if you go to those like in my current school, our computers are not brand new. Not like they are bad, but they really prioritize. We don't have a fancy student lounge. It's just an okay lounge because like I think when they get their budgets, they put more money into students development, student funding. John Hopkins has, beautiful things. They have these big researchers. I don't think they really prioritize. Maybe they prioritize things like having modern space and modern equipment, up to date things, but I don't think they really prioritize student funding. So that's the other thing. When you see a fancy school, some of them prioritize paying their lecturers and doing more research, and students are not really welcome. One thing about UIC is that in many departments, new lecturers are given what they call seed fund. And that new lecturer must fund a student. You must hire a student as your RA. So you even see presentations where lecturers will say, please, I'm looking for a student, like I'm a new person, I'm looking for a student to hire. In my school here, there was a time where in the lab where I work, we were advertising a position, we were looking for a research assistant for months, which will never happen in some schools. Like you will never see vacancy for a long time because it's very few. But here, many teachers, many of our instructors have seed fund. The school really prioritize students when it comes to funding. So, which is something you may need to look out for when choosing schools. So you want to ask them directly. You want to filter, if you're using SOFAS, you may want to filter by funding. And but for many programs, not all, but quite a number of programs fund PhD students, especially public health. So, which I know of. Schools where they do research, um, usually a faculty cannot do, so faculty is what we call lecturer. Faculties cannot do research on their own. They always need the help of students, things like creating tables, things like literature review, things like, because they're very busy. So they need students to keep doing these things. They need students for program evaluate, or many things that they need students for. So ideally, one of the things about UIC is like a state-owned school. So they manage state, like this COVID-19 response. We are like the research arm for the state, kind of. So the state gives us, if they need to evaluate a program, for example, I'm working on the Wise Women Project, which is like breast and cervical cancer, IBCCC, Illinois Breast and Cervical Cancer Program, which the state is the one doing it, like the state ministry of Department of Health. But they need, if they want to evaluate it, UIC is like their research arm that they use. So they give grants to that, and to do that, you need students. So those are some of the benefits of going to state-owned school as against private-owned school. I think John Hopkins is private. So you need to look out for that. Ask them straight away, and if they say yes, then you start looking out for it. You will always find, don't feel pressured like, let me just accept, even if there's no funding. Just keep searching. You will always find the one where there is funding.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ayokunle, for this. So, guys, you've heard from her, okay, and she has shared so many insights with us today. So, questions are already coming in. So, if you have questions in the house, could you please raise your hand and unmute your mic so that you can ask or address your questions to our guest? If you have questions, please, would you just go ahead to do so? All right. So, I have a question here, and the person is asking that you should share with us, even though I have that question before that I have intention of asking you, but the person is also asking too, that which is better in terms of the quality or how the academic environment is here in Nigeria as well as abroad. In comparison, what can you say? You have studied at both ends. What can you say? What's your own view on that?
Okay, yeah, I mean, I can say that when I was in Nigeria, I schooled in um, probably one of the best government schools, which is University of Ibadan. So it would be a good comparison comparing UI to this place. Um, so there's no basis for comparison. The difference is very wide. Couple of areas. First of all, the student lecturer relationship is very good. You are able to work well, with they can involve you, they respect you, they don't, um, over in Nigeria where lecturer will just talk to you anyhow or just treat you anyhow and just say things anyhow. Here you are like colleagues. So they are like your senior colleague, you are like the junior colleague. They are patient with you to make sure that you understand. They feel it's their fault if you don't understand something. They don't take pride in student failing. In Nigeria, where someone will say, my exam is very tough. Only 20% pass. Nobody will pass. Two of you will pass, and they will be happy. Here, the priority is you need to understand. So they will do everything to make sure that you understand. They'll do everything that they can, to make sure that you understand. They provide the resources. When I came from Nigeria, I didn't know so many things because of our education system or whatever. I didn't know so many things that a PhD student should know. There was that gap. But, which is something I think I should also mention. When you get to the US, you most likely realize this gap. You will most likely realize that you've just been playing in Nigeria, and you won't be able to always be asking in class that, please, what's this? Please, what's this? Because they will feel like, at this level, you should know it. So I was in that level. I didn't know many of the basic things. So what I did, which I'll probably encourage you to do, is for each class that I go to, if there are things I don't understand, I'll just start taking note of them, key concepts. Okay, confounding this and this, effect modifier, mediator variables. I'll just be writing it down in my jotter. Then when I go home, I'll go to YouTube. I could go to like edX. I could even watch videos on Harvard where they are teaching YouTube videos of maybe lecturers from Harvard where they are teaching those concepts. So I was always doing that and doing that and doing that until I was able to come on board, because you can't just be raising up your hand, in class to start asking questions that you should have known when you're a master's student. So that gap might be there initially when you come, but you will now have a lot of work to do on your own to go and cover up. And the good thing here is they give you class lecture notes ahead of time. Like they will give you the notes for the entire semester, everything on day one. So you know what you'll be studying. So you study ahead. Any concept you don't understand, you go and read it ahead. You know questions you will ask your teacher. You are not asking irrelevant or very, very low um, questions and all. So the environment is very supportive and it's good for learning if you really want to learn. The other thing that some schools do, like my school here, is I told you it's owned by a state. So the
Yes.
state has 4 universities. University of Illinois Chicago, University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, University of Illinois Peoria, University of Illinois Springfield. So these 4 universities, you can take course from any of the 4. You might be at one of them and go and take course. If you can't find your course in the whole campus, that's the thing that you might also need to pay attention to. Some public health schools are very flexible. My previous school, they are not flexible. You can only take course from the School of Public Health and from your department. It is only when you get to maybe year 3 that you can start taking course from outside. But my current school allow you, if there is any, like me, when I said I'm very much interested in health communication, I can go to the School of Communication to take courses. And if I cannot find anything in the entire school, I can go to any of the other 3 campuses to take. So that makes me very happy. And I can work with any lecturer. In fact, that you are my advisor. Like for me, I'm not even working with my advisor's project. I'm not working on his project because we are doing 2 different kinds of projects. So I'm working with other people that are doing things similar. Earlier this year, one of our professors just sent me an email and just like, "Hi, Ayo, I want to write a paper on this, and I know you're interested in health communication. I want you to take the lead. I want you to be the first author on the paper." And this is our professor. She's big deal. I mean, if you just mention her name. So they encourage you. She's like, "I will be the last author. I want you to take the leadership. I want you to be the first author, Ayo. I'm going to give you all the support. I'm going to do this." And she's not even my advisor. She's not any. So that helps you to just, and we wrote the paper and we submitted it, I think, in March. You can also work, like even the department I work now, I work in the School of Public Health, but I'm also doing research in another college entirely, where I'm also working. So that is also helpful. You can work wide, you
All right.
can spread your own. So
Okay.
the difference is clear.
Thank you very much, Ayokunle, for this insight. So, do we have people in the house who have question? Just unmute your mic and ask your question because we are all muted. Okay.
Okay, good evening, Ms. Ayo. Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much for this wonderful insight you have shared for us. I want to ask, can you mention any affiliations that you joined that has really helped your career? Is there any affiliations, organizations, or kind of group of people that you joined that really helped your career?
Oh yeah, so
Yes.
you mean before my PhD or currently?
Both
Uh,
way.
before your PhD and currently,
Yeah.
in both ways.
Okay, so thank you. Before my PhD, um, so I told you I started a theater group. So we had a team which I started, and that was like the only major team that I had. I think I won't say I joined any professional body before my PhD. I said I also worked with on the John Hopkins project, but that's like work related,
Mm.
uh, not really for academic purpose. Currently, um, the associations that have been helping me are collaboration with colleagues. I collaborate with people. Um, for example, I mentioned Okwe the other time. She's the one showing as Okwe Babajide here. So we started a WhatsApp group together for researchers majorly in Nigeria, where the purpose is to collaborate and to help one another to just grow and do stuff. And it's been very good. I mean, um, we've been sometimes when I see opportunities here, I could just be like, hey, there is a call for poster here. Can we just work on a poster together? I always encourage people. That's another thing. If you hope to apply to the US, start using US data. Start using US data to start publishing something on US data. The US have a lot of publicly available data. Um, that are available. You don't need to pay. You don't need to start analyzing on those data. Start so that when you are even speaking with them and you tell them that you recently did an analysis on the hint data and you found out that this moderate the relationship between this. They will be like, and you're in Nigeria and you're already working on a data set. Because some of those data sets require skills. In fact, there are some people who ask you here that, are you very good at analyzing this particular type of data set? And you don't need to do complex data analysis. There was a time that Okwe compared foreign-born and US-born African Americans. And she just looked at maybe their screening behavior. And she realized that, oh, the foreign-born African Americans are different from the US-born African Americans. And she was able to prove that don't just count Black people as Black people. Don't just ask that, are you Black? You need to now break it down. And she worked on that with a US-based data, and she worked on it from Nigeria. And she sent it to me. Our school was having a poster presentation research day, and I helped her to present it as a poster. That way, she have to her CV first author presentation on the US-based project in the US without she even coming in person to do it. So this kind of association or organizations can help you. If you know someone who is in the US, you can ask if they have a network. Some people have a network for working with people in Nigeria, and you may just want to set up that team where if you're very good at data analysis, but you don't even need complex data analysis. Even the basic ones, like I said, what she did, it was nothing complex.
All right. Thank you very much, Ayokunle, for this.
Your friends in bio, our network should be targeted at working on US-based data.
Okay.
And you can even start submitting them to US-based journals and have publications in the US already, even before you get in as a student. So, and I'll be happy to anyone interested in that, I'll be happy to talk further with you on that. I'm very big on research, so I'll be happy to work with you on that.
All right.
So
thank you so much. Thank you for this, for making yourself available to us again for further conversation in this direction. I'm very, very grateful for this time out with you. And then also be willing to receive any materials that you have that may be of use to us. Very soon our website will be live, and then all these materials will be shared. You talked about the template for application the other time. We'll also be willing to, of course, we have to credit it to you, so that, show that indeed it's actually from you. And we're going to make them available for other people to have access to, and then share, use it for their own personal career advancement. Thank you, Ayokunle, for this time out. Everyone, we are very lucky to have our guest here today to share with us. So lastly, Ayokunle, I don't know whether you can tell us what's next for you. What's next for you?
Yeah, so like I said, currently I just defended um, my research proposal. So the next thing would be to start the data collection and the whole research project. And hopefully after that, for me, my first choice of probably in terms of where to work will be, so currently I'm doing a lot. I'm part of the response team to the COVID-19. We developed a contact tracing curriculum to help contact tracers, even as the reopening is getting relaxed gradually. I'm part of that team. I also work at the Veteran Affairs, the US military base. They have affiliation with our school, so I'm licensed to work on some of their data sets, which is something that is of a um, um, high priority, highly classified data in working on that. I'm also the assistant program coordinator for our PMP program at UIC. The PMP is pre-matriculation program, so all our incoming master's students sometimes go through this pre-matriculation program where we take them through. Coupling that with my own dissertation, and also in terms of after school, well, when we get there, we take it one step at a time. But for me, lecturing is not my first choice. I would just prefer to work in a research institute as my first choice. I feel like there's so much pressure. That's just my personal opinion in lecturing. There's so much pressure, publishing, doing this, doing that. I just like to do my research where I'm cool and I can always use whatever finding I get to do stuff. So that'll be it from me.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Guys, everyone, I want you to do a favor for me. I want you to kindly unmute your mic and then say a big thank you to our guest. Kindly unmute your mic and say a big thank you to our guest.
Wow.
All right. So let's just
Thank you very
thank you, thank
much,
you, thank you,
Thank
thank
you,
you,
Ma.
thank you.
I appreciate the
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you
God
Thank you
bless
very much.
you.
You gave
God
us so
Yeah.
much
bless
hack.
you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Please stay safe, ma.
Thank you.
So can we cap it up with a round of applause, please? Can we just cap it up with a round of applause? Let's just give her a round of applause. All right, thank you. Thank you, Ayokunle. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. We are grateful for
Welcome.
your time. We plan spending 2 hours, and I think we are about to reach that time frame. So, do you have any parting word with us, please?
Yeah, nothing is hard, nothing is difficult. Don't let anybody scare you. It's as easy as if you can go to school in Nigeria, you will do exceedingly well here in the US. There is nothing difficult. If you can survive the harsh academic environment in Nigeria, you will thrive tremendously here. You will thrive tremendously. Um, Many people here have a lot of psychological barriers. They believe things are hard. They believe, like when I was preparing for my prelim exam, you have many of them like, how are we going to write exam for 9 hours? They kept complaining to the teachers. That's hard. That's not a fair question to ask. That's not me that I'm coming from a place where they don't even tell you where to read. Somebody not even tell me that read this particular area. How will I now say that's hard? So if you've survived the Nigeria, you will do very, very well. And feel free to reach out to me. Dr. Leshi can give you my email address if you you need specific, you can always schedule time to speak one-on-one. I'll be happy to help you.
All right. Thank you so much, Ayokunle, for this time out. Thank you. We are very grateful. And then we pray that God's wisdom, God's counsel will continue to direct you. And then it will lift you up. It will make you a better researcher. Thank you so much. We are grateful. And we know that anytime we call on you to also come around, you'll be willing to share your more insight with us.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Yes, this is a thank you message from us to you. All right, we appreciate you. Thank you so much. We are very grateful for that. Everyone, can you give our guests another round of applause? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Thank you for your patience with me.
All right. Thank you so much. We are very grateful for that. We are very grateful, and we hope to see you around that time. So everyone, this is the end of our webinar. We are day 1, day 2, and this is day 3. Thank you very much for joining us. Please feel free to share your insight with us. It will encourage us to know that indeed you have gained on this platform. Thank you so much for joining us. And then I hope that you are keeping safe, and I also urge you to continue to keep safe. See you some other time. Thank you, and God bless. Bye for now.